Many people say that truth is stranger than fiction. That appears to be the case in regards to these strange and mysterious coincidences that are riddled all throughout history and may lead many to believe that perhaps there is something of a supernatural connection. Be it a mysterious all-knowing force or just the human mind's amazing ability to find patterns in the world around us, these mysterious coincidences exist and will make you question whether or not they truly are coincidences. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be going over these 3 mysterious coincidences. How 15 mundane miracles saved 15 lives from an explosion. Once in a lifetime, or maybe not even that, do we witness or experience a miracle. So what if I told you that on March the 1st, 1950, in a seemingly normal town in Beatrice, Nebraska, 15 miracles occurred on the same night. West Side Baptist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska would have regular church choir practice every week, and 15 individuals would usually meet around 7:15 p.m. for practice to take place at around 7:20 p.m. So, what makes this a crazy story? Well, unfortunately, at 7:25 p.m., a previously undetected gas leak caused an explosion that would completely level the church and even damage nearby buildings in the process. The coincidence? Not one of the 15 expected people were in the church. Every single person had been late for one reason or another. So what actually happened? Reverend Walter Klemperer, his wife and his daughter had been ready to leave and were set to arrive at the church on time until the Reverend's daughter, Marilyn Ruth, just so happened to notice a stain on her dress. This meant that her mother had to go and get another dress ready and iron it, so they ended up being late. All 3 of them were still at home when the church exploded. The church pianist, Marilyn Paul, and her mother, who is also the choir's director, had actually planned on arriving at the church 30 minutes early to prepare some things. Instead, Marilyn ended up oversleeping from a nap. Whilst napping, Marilyn's mother had tried to wake her several times and eventually managed to at around 7:15 p.m. Not wanting to leave without her daughter, Marilyn's mother waited for her to get dressed and ready for church. Whilst Marilyn was getting ready, the church exploded. Lucille Jones and Dorothy Wood were in high school at the time. Both attended choir practice together and were normally always on time. However, on March 1st, 1950, Lucille was strangely insistent on staying at home and listening to a radio show until it finished, at around 7:30 p.m. Dorothy waited with her and were both still at home when the church exploded. Royina and Sadie Estes were sisters who had actually left for church on that evening, but their car would not start. They ended up calling another member of the choir, Ladona Vondergrift, who also had a reputation for being early. However, Ladona was in the middle of completing geometry homework and wanted to finish it before leaving. All 3 of them ended up being late and were not in the church when it exploded. Herbert Kipf was also on track to be early, but instead sat down at his desk to finish an important letter, and was still sitting at his desk when the church exploded. Mrs. Schuster and Susan, her daughter, were on their way to church as normal but had to make a quick stop to help Mrs. Schuster's mother with preparation for a missionary meeting. They ended up getting delayed and were not at the church when it exploded. Harvey Arl's wife was away that evening, and as a result, he had to get his sons ready by himself, which took longer than usual. All 3 of them ended up being late and were not at the church when it exploded. Joyce Black happened to live just across the street from the church, and this time there was no real coincidence. She was just feeling lazy as it was cold outside and warm inside. She was waiting until the last moment to leave in which she wouldn't be too late. She was not at the church when it exploded. The West Side Baptist Church was completely destroyed at 7:25 p.m., and not a single person that would normally have been there was there. Was this divine intervention or just a series of coincidences? Twins killed by the same taxi. In 1975, Hamilton, Bermuda, a 17-year-old boy was in a fatal accident whilst riding around his hometown of Hamilton on his moped. But what makes this tragedy a coincidence? Well, this is exactly a year after his brother was also in a fatal accident riding the exact same moped. What's more is both brothers passed away not only whilst riding the same moped, but at the same intersection, and were both hit by the same taxi, driven by the same taxi driver, carrying the same passenger that was in the taxi when the first brother's life was taken. This is an incredible coincidence and a devastating tragedy. The brothers, Erskine and Neville Ebbin, were both 17 when they passed away, and both collisions happened in July. This coincidence, however, may not be as crazy as once thought. You've probably even heard this one before, but maybe not the facts. As you may have already noticed, how could twins that were both 17 years old pass away a year apart? Well, they were not twins, despite the newspapers at the time reporting so. They were brothers born within a year of each other. Another thing you may have noticed is that again, despite being reported as both brothers being hit at the same intersection, it was actually not the same intersection, and the accidents occurred up the road from each other. It has also been noted that whilst the accidents occurred within a very small radius of each other, that the local area, their hometown, is also a very small area in relation to other towns and cities. Whilst these small facts make this less coincidental, it is still a devastating coincidence in which two 17-year-old brothers' lives were taken away within a short radius of each other, riding the same moped just over a year apart by the same taxi with the same driver and the same passenger. Hoover Dam death coincidence. On December 20th, 1921, whilst carrying out a location survey for the development of the Hoover Dam, a surveying crew were sadly hit by a flash flood, and a man named John Gregory Tierney was swept away, never to be found in the unforgiving Colorado River. This would be one of the first accidents that occurred during the construction of the Hoover Dam. Fast forward 14 years, on the exact same day, December 20th, 1935, the dam construction site suffered its last casualty when a construction worker sadly fell to his death from one of the intake towers. The man that fell, Patrick William Tierney, was John Gregory Tierney's son. Where did it all begin? John and his wife's 3-year-old daughter sadly passed away, so the young Tierneys ended up moving to Arizona. This would be where John Tierney found work with the survey crew, right at the start of construction of the Hoover Dam. Not long after, John would be tragically swept away by the Colorado River. Patrick was 12 when his father passed away, and upon hearing the devastating news, Patrick and his mother would move back to Missouri, where they had moved from years prior. Patrick would spend the rest of his childhood in Missouri, and during his high school years, he met a girl named Hazel. They married in August 1931, and their son, also named Patrick Gregory Tierney, was born a year later. During the Depression, the small family packed up and headed west in search of work. Patrick Sr. would end up finding work at the biggest construction project in the USA at the time, the Hoover Dam. It was here, 14 years to the day after his father John tragically passed away, that Patrick Sr. would fall to his untimely death whilst working on the dam. Father and son were both killed in accidents during the construction of the famous dam 14 years apart to the day. This truly heartbreaking coincidence is almost unfathomable. Both accidents also ended up being one of the first and the last that occurred during construction. Both their names are now on a plaque close by to the dam so that they may never be forgotten. But what do you make of these 3 crazy coincidences? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.